My sister told my husband, she married you for money. An hour later my dad said, divorce her. By nightfall, her lie exposed. She loved his brother. She replied, what? I nearly rear-ended the car in front of me. My husband Ethan's voice was steady, but I could hear his anger underneath. Your sister just told me that you only married me for the money. She said, you never loved me, and I was just a paycheck to you. My hand was shaking so much that I had to pull into a parking lot. Ethan, you are aware that this is not true. I understand, Lauren. I understand. I am not calling because I believe her. I'm calling because of what she said as she left. I didn't think things could get worse, but he was about to prove me wrong. What exactly did she say? She said, your parents deserve to know what kind of daughter they raised. She promised to go over there right now and tell them the truth about you. I had already pulled back onto the road, cutting off a minivan. My parents, specifically my mother, with whom I had spent years rebuilding a relationship following the chaos of my childhood. Last Christmas, my father finally told me that he was proud of the woman I had become. Savannah was about to walk into their house and tell them their daughter was a fraud, a gold digger, and that everything I'd built was a lie, including the degree I worked 4 jobs to pay for, the career I built from nothing, and the marriage I treasured. How long ago did she leave? 7 minutes. Perhaps 12. Their house was 24 minutes from Ethan's office and 17 from where I was now. If I passed every yellow light, I pressed the gas harder. I'm going to beat her there. Lauren, I have to be there first. I have to. My voice cracked, and I despised it. I will meet you there. Ethan stated. I'm leaving now. I hung up and drove. I beat Savannah by about 5 minutes. When I pulled into my parents' driveway and saw that her car hadn't arrived yet, I nearly collapsed with relief. I had just enough time to warn them and get ahead of whatever she had planned to say. I walked through the front door to find my parents in the kitchen. Dad was reading something from his tablet. Mom was wiping down the counter even though it was already clean, which indicated that she was concerned about something. They both looked up as I walked in, and I could see the surprise on their faces. I never simply showed up like this anymore. Lauren. Mom put down her rag. What are you doing here? I took a breath. I needed to remain calm. I needed to be strategic. Something happened between Savannah and Ethan. I wanted to talk with you before. Mom's expression changed immediately. Her eyes hardened, and her mouth formed the thin line I remembered from childhood. What did you do to make her upset? I blinked. I didn't, and I'm trying to tell you. Dad sighed and put down his tablet. Here we go. What is it this time? I hadn't even finished one sentence. I hadn't even reached the point, and I was already a defendant. Already I was the problem. I felt something cold settle into my stomach. 22 years had passed, and nothing had changed. Savannah was upset in this house, and Lauren was to blame. That was the rule. This had always been the rule. I opened my mouth to try again, but the front door opened, and Savannah entered. She cried and shook. Her mascara was running down her cheeks, and her hands trembled as she clutched her purse to her chest like a shield. The performance was perfect. Mom rushed over immediately. Savannah, honey, what is wrong? What happened? She wrapped her arms around her and led her to the kitchen table, giving me a look over her shoulder as if I'd done something. Like whatever happened had to be my fault. Dad stood up and hovered nearby, his face creased in concern. Are you okay, sweetheart? Do you need some water? Sit down. Sit down. I attempted to interject. Let me finish what I said. Mom turned around. Can't you see how upset she is? Stop obsessing over yourself for once. She might as well have punched me. I stood there with my mouth open, watching my parents fuss over Savannah, getting her water, rubbing her back and murmuring comfort. Savannah sat there soaking it all in, tears streaming down her cheeks, looking so fragile and wounded that you could have mistaken her for dead. Finally she took a shaky breath and looked up at our parents through wet, red-rimmed eyes. I didn't want to say anything, she admitted, her voice small and broken. I've been carrying this for so long, and I can't anymore. Mom squeezed her hand. You can tell us anything, sweetheart. Whatever it is, we are here. Savannah gave me a quick glance and I saw something cold and satisfied behind her tears. Then she turned back to our parents. Lauren informed me that she only married Ethan for his money. She laughed about it and said she'd finally gotten out. She wiped her face and her voice broke perfectly. I did not want to believe it either. I'd never heard silence so loud. I watched my parents' expressions change. I watched them stare at me as if I were a stranger, as if I was exactly who they had suspected I was. "That's a lie," I replied. My voice came out harsher than I intended. "That is a complete lie. I never said that. I have never said anything like that." Savannah shook her head sadly. "I didn't want to believe it either, Lauren. But you mentioned it. You laughed at how easy it was to make him fall for you. You claimed you'd never have to worry about money again. That never occurred." I was almost shouting now. I pulled out my phone and began scrolling. "Look at my bank account. This is money I saved before meeting Ethan. 4 jobs during college. I paid off my student loans myself. This is my salary from my job, which I earned on my own merit." I pushed the phone toward my mother. "Look at this. I built it myself. I don't need anybody's money." Mom did not even glance at the screen. She simply looked at me with tired disappointment, as if I were a child attempting to lie my way out of trouble. Dad waved his hand dismissively. "Anyone can create a fake number. You were always good at portraying yourself as the victim." The words made me physically ill. I had receipts. I had proof. They didn't matter. They didn't matter because my parents had already decided on their beliefs. They made a decision before I walked through the door. The front door opened again, and Ethan entered. He must have broken every speed limit to get here so quickly. He took in the scene quickly. Savannah was crying at the table, with my parents hovering over her. And I was standing alone with my phone in hand, his jaw clenched. He walked up to me and placed his hand on my back. I arrived as quickly as I could. What did I miss? Savannah told them, "I married you for your money," I explained. She claims I confessed it to her and laughed about it. Ethan's face became hard. He turned to face my parents. "That is insane. I have been married to Lauren for 4 years. I saw her stress over her own bills. I saw her refuse to let me help her pay off her student loans. She insisted on dividing everything evenly, even though I told her she didn't have to. She has never asked me for money. Not once." Mom shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with pity. "She has you fooled, sweetheart. She's good at it." Ethan stared at her. "I apologize." "What?" Dad stood up from the table and approached my husband. He did not even look at me. It was as if I wasn't in the room anymore. "Son, I am going to give you some advice. Divorce her. Get out while you can, before she bleeds you dry." I stepped between them, physically placed my body between my father and my husband. "Stop. You can't talk to my husband about my marriage as if I'm not standing here. This is my life. He knows me better than you ever have." Dad stared at Ethan as if I hadn't said anything, like I was furniture. "She did it to us too. He said she made us believe she had changed. We assumed she had outgrown all of her childhood drama. But people do not change. Not really." I felt a shift inside me. Something that had been holding on for years has finally let go. "Drama," I reiterated. "Is that what you call it?" Mom's face tightened. "Lauren, don't start." "No, I'd like to understand." "Mom, what drama are you talking about? What did I do that was so unforgivable?" Mom got up from the table. Her voice was quiet, which made matters worse. "Do you remember what I am talking about? When you were 17, you stood in our kitchen, looked at me and your father, and said, 'You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise children.'" She let it sit. The words hung in the air, like smoke. "We forgive you for that," she added. "We welcomed you back into the family. We were proud of you as we watched you build your own little life. And now I discover you've been lying to that man since the day you met him." She shakes her head. "You always had to turn everything into a catastrophe. Couldn't simply be a part of this family without tearing it apart. You had to drag everyone through your drama and pretend like you were the only one suffering." She looked at Ethan. "Now she is doing the same thing to you." I stood there and allowed the words to wash over me. Something clicked into place. Something I should have seen years ago. These weren't parents who got fooled by Savannah. These weren't parents who were confused or misled. These were parents who had been waiting for permission to stop pretending they'd forgiven me. Waiting for an excuse to go back to treating me like the problem child. The difficult one. The daughter who saw too clearly and said too much. Savannah didn't trick them. She just gave them the key to a door they'd been standing in front of for 22 years. I took Ethan's hand. "We're leaving." I walked toward the front door, but I stopped in front of Savannah. She looked up at me with those tear-stained cheeks and that wounded expression that I now knew was pure performance. I kept my voice low, calm, cold. "I don't know why you're doing this, Savannah, but I'm going to find out." Her eyes went wide, her jaw clenched. A bead of sweat formed at her hairline. For just a second the mask slipped, and I saw something underneath. Fear. Real fear. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I saw it. And I was going to find out what she was hiding. I walked out of my parents' house with my husband beside me. Behind us, I could hear my mother calling my name, telling me I was being dramatic, telling me I was proving her point. I didn't look back. The relationship I'd spent years rebuilding was ash. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. Savannah had something to hide. Something that scared her enough to make her destroy my life, just to keep it buried. And I was going to dig until I found it. The car was silent for the first 6 minutes. I couldn't stop shaking. Ethan kept both hands on the wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw so tight I could see the muscle jumping. He was the first one to speak. They didn't even look at the bank statements. His voice was low and hard. "Your mother didn't glance at the screen. Your father waved it off like you were showing him a coupon. They didn't want to know the truth, Lauren. They wanted permission to treat you like garbage again." And Savannah handed it to them on a silver platter. I pressed my palms against my eyes. I could still hear my mother's voice. "You're bad parents. You don't know how to raise kids." 22 years, and she'd been saving that, waiting to throw it back in my face. "And Savannah," Ethan continued, his anger building, crying on cue, shaking like a leaf. "That was a performance. I've seen better acting in car commercials. She had that lie ready. She practiced it. She knew exactly what she was going to say, and exactly how she was going to say it." He slammed his palm against the steering wheel. What kind of person does that to their own sister? I didn't have an answer. That was the part I couldn't wrap my head around. Savannah and I weren't best friends, but we were family. We had history. I'd held her hair back when she got food poisoning at her bachelorette party. I'd helped her pick out her wedding dress. I'd shown up for every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. And she repaid me by trying to blow up my marriage and turn my parents against me. "But why?" I said out loud. "What does she gain from this? Even if my parents believe her, even if she destroys my reputation with them, what does she get?" Ethan was quiet for a second, then he glanced at me. "I've been thinking about that, and there's something I never told you because I thought I was imagining it." I looked at him. The way Savannah acts around Carter, Mason's brother. He glanced at me to make sure I was following. Mason was Savannah's husband. I've noticed it for a while. She's different when he's in the room. She finds reasons to sit next to him. She laughs too hard at his jokes. She's always volunteering to help him with stuff. I frowned. "Carter. I barely know him. He's at family stuff sometimes, but we've never really talked." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. You barely notice him. But Savannah, she notices every time he walks through a door. I've seen it at barbecues, at holiday dinners, at Mason's birthday last year. The second Carter shows up, Savannah transforms. She's louder, more animated. She touches her hair more." He shook his head. "I told myself I was reading into it, but after today, I don't think I was." I sat with that for a moment. Savannah and Carter. It didn't make sense. Savannah was married to Mason. She'd been married to Mason for years. They had a house together, a life together. "You think she's capable of cheating?" I asked. Ethan scoffed. "After what I just watched her do to you? I think she's capable of anything." He reached over and took my hand. His grip was firm, steady. "We're going to figure out what she's hiding together. Whatever game she's playing, we're going to find out the rules." I squeezed his hand back. "Okay, let's start with Mason." We pulled up to Mason and Savannah's house 24 minutes later. The lights were on downstairs. Mason's truck was in the driveway, and Savannah's car was gone. She was probably still at my parents' house, basking in her victory. "How do you want to play this?" Ethan asked, putting the car in park. "Careful. I don't want to blow up his life until we know what we're dealing with." "Got it. I'll follow your lead. But if he knows something, I'm pushing." We walked up to the front door and I knocked. Mason answered in a t-shirt and sweatpants, a beer in one hand and confusion all over his face. "Lauren," Ethan. He looked between us. What are you guys doing here? I kept my voice light. We were in the area, thought we'd stop by. Is Savannah home? No, she went to your parents' place a few hours ago. Said something about needing to talk to them about. He stopped. Studied my face. What's happening? Ethan stepped in. Can we come in? We need to talk. Mason's confusion grew, but he moved aside. We followed him into the living room and sat on the couch while he settled into the armchair across from us. You're scaring me, Mason said. Is anyone hurt? Is this Savannah? Savannah's fine, I said. At least physically, but something happened today and we're trying to figure it out. We hoped you could help us. Mason took a long drink from his beer. Can I help you? How? Ethan leaned forwards. How are things between you and Savannah? Honestly, Mason replied with a hollow laugh. That is a loaded question. He looked down at the bottle in his hands. Things are. I do not know. Fine. I suppose we're fine. Fine does not sound fine, Ethan said. Mason remained quiet for a moment. She has been different for years. I don't know how to describe it. Sometimes I feel as if I'm living with a roommate rather than a wife. She's always somewhere else in her mind. Even though she's sitting right next to me, she's not really present. How are they different? I asked gently. Distant. Checked out. He shrugged. I try to plan date nights, but she always finds a reason to cancel. I suggest a weekend trip and she gets a headache, is too tired, or something happened at work. I ask her if she's happy, and she says yes, but it doesn't show in her eyes. He had another drink. I keep thinking I'm doing something wrong, like I'm not exciting enough, successful enough or whatever, but I don't know how to fix something if I don't even know what's broken. My chest tightened. Mason was a good man, kind, and loyal, and he had spent years blaming himself for something that was never his fault. When did it start? Ethan asked. The distance. Mason thought about it. I do not know. It's difficult to pinpoint. Perhaps it was always there, and I just didn't notice at first. He paused and frowned. Actually, this is not true. She was different at first, warmer, and more present, but then something changed, and she retreated completely. He fell silent, his eyes unfocused as if he were scrolling through memories, looking for a pattern he had missed. Then his expression changed. Do you know what's weird? Mason spoke slowly. She's not like that with Carter. Ethan and I both remained still. What do you mean? Ethan inquired carefully. My brother, when Carter is around, she is, I'm not sure, alive. That's the only word for it. Mason shook his head, as if he hadn't heard himself before. She laughs and talks more. She remembers every detail about his life, including his job, hobbies, and schedule. She insisted on driving 3 hours to his housewarming party last spring, despite my work deadline. However, when my college friend came to town, she developed a migraine and was unable to attend dinner. He put down his beer and rubbed his face with both hands. I'd never thought about it like this before. But when Carter needs help with something, she's in the car before I can finish my sentence. When I need help with something, she has 100 excuses. Ethan looked at me. I gave him a little nod. Mason, Ethan said. Has Savannah ever spoken about her feelings for Carter? Anything that felt more than simply being a good sister-in-law? Mason's face hardened. What are you asking me? We ask because... No. Mason stood up so quickly that his chair scraped against the floor. No, you cannot come into my home and inquire about my marriage, only to imply that my wife has feelings for my brother. That is insane. Savannah is many things, but she isn't. She would not. He was pacing and running his hands through his hair. You are wrong. Whatever you think, you're mistaken. Savannah loves me. She married me. We live a life together. 7 years. 7 years of marriage, and you're going to tell me she's been pining for Carter the entire time. That is crazy. That's absolutely insane. Mason and Ethan started. And even if she did have something for him, which she does not, what is the point? Why are you here? Why are you asking me this? His voice crackled. What happened today that prompted you to drive to my house and blow up my entire life? I stood up gently. Mason, please sit down. We need to tell you what happened. Then tell me. He started shouting now. Stop dancing around the issue and simply say it. Savannah went to Ethan today, I said, maintaining a steady voice. She told him that I married him for his money. She said I confessed to her. That I laughed when I finally made it out. Mason froze. What? It is a lie, all of it. I never said that. I've never considered it. Savannah told Ethan, and then she told my parents the same thing. My voice wavered, but I pressed on. My parents believed her. They told Ethan to divorce me. They claimed I had been deceiving everyone for years. Your wife walked into my parents' house, crying and shaking, and gave a performance that destroyed my relationship with my family in 24 minutes. Mason's face turned white. No, that is not true. Savannah would not. We watched her do it, Ethan said, sobbing on cue and trembling like a victim. She had everything rehearsed. She knew exactly what to say and how to deliver it. Mason lowered himself back into the chair, as if his legs couldn't support him anymore. He stared at the floor. Why? He finally spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper. Why would she do that? That's what we're trying to figure out, I explained. That is why we are here. That is why we asked about Carter, because we don't understand why Savannah would try to end my marriage unless there's something else going on that we can't see. Mason remained quiet for a long time. He looked up, and his eyes were wet. Mason abruptly stated, I'm coming with you. I will accompany you wherever you go next. Ethan shakes his head. I do not think that is a good idea. Not yet. If Savannah returns home and you are not present, she will notice something is wrong. We need you to behave normally until we figure out what we're dealing with. Mason became angry. So I am supposed to sit here and pretend everything is fine. Assume my wife did not just try to blow up my sister-in-law's life. For the time being, I said. Only for now. We'll tell you everything we find out. I promise. Mason stared at the wall. The silence was so long that I thought he wouldn't respond. Then he looked at me with hollow eyes. Lost. I don't even know who I'm married to, he said quietly. I thought I did, but I don't. We left Mason's house in silence. I kept seeing his face, the confusion turning to anger, then to something worse. That hollow look in his eyes when he said he had no idea who he was married to. That was brutal, Ethan admitted finally. He knew nothing about any of it. He knew there was something wrong. I explained that he simply couldn't name it. Carter has noticed all of the things he mentioned, including the distance, the canceled plans, and the way she lights up around him for years. He simply didn't want to know what it meant. And now we've handed him a box full of evidence and asked him to look. Ethan looked at me. But we still don't know why. We know Savannah has a relationship with Carter, or at least she thinks she does. We know her marriage is hollow. But what does any of this have to do with you? That's why we need to speak with Carter. Carter lived in an apartment complex approximately 17 minutes away. Ethan called him on the way, saying we needed to discuss something important. Carter sounded perplexed, but agreed to meet us. He buzzed us and greeted us at his door with a puzzled look. Lauren. Ethan. He shook Ethan's hand and offered me an awkward half-hug. This is unexpected. Is everything okay? His apartment was clean and simple. Bachelor furniture, a gaming setup in the corner. He offered us water and sat down across from us looking genuinely lost. So, what's going on? You sounded serious on the phone. Ethan didn't waste time. We need to ask you about Savannah. Carter's eyebrows shot up. Savannah. What about her? How did you two meet? I asked. Carter looked surprised by the question. Savannah. We met years ago, before she and Mason got together actually. We worked at the same company for a few months. We'd grab lunch sometimes, talk in the break room. She was cool. He shrugged. Then I introduced her to Mason at a company happy hour and they hit it off. Rest is history. Ethan and I exchanged a look. So you knew her first? Ethan said slowly. And then you introduced her to your brother. Yeah. I thought they'd be good together. Mason was going through a dry spell and Savannah was single and seemed like his type. Carter smiled at the memory. Honestly, I felt like a pretty good matchmaker when they started dating. 7 years married now. I take full credit. The smile faded when he saw our faces. Why? What's going on, Carter? Ethan said directly. Does Savannah have feelings for you? Carter's face went through 40 different moods all at once. Confusion, then discomfort, Then something that looked like recognition he'd been avoiding. There have been moments, he admitted slowly. Things I brushed off. The way she hugs me too long. The way she always sits next to me at dinners. The way she looks at me sometimes. He shook his head. But she's married to my brother. Why would she marry Mason if she... He stopped, and that's when it hit me. The timeline. Carter met Savannah first. They worked together, had lunch together. Then he introduced her to Mason and she married him anyway. Oh my God, I said quietly. She married Mason to stay close to you. The words came out like I was hearing them for the first time myself. Because I was. Carter's face went through something ugly. First confusion, then understanding, then disgust. No, that's sick. That's my brother. She's been married to my brother for 7 years. She's been sleeping in his bed, eating dinner with him, being his wife. His voice crackled. And the whole time she was what? Waiting. Waiting for me to notice her. Waiting for me to make a move. He stood up and paced across the room. I introduced them. I set them up. I thought I was doing something good and she used it. She used Mason to get to me. She's been playing both of us this entire time. He turned back to us, his face red. Does Mason know? Does he know his wife married him because she couldn't have me? We just came from his house. Ethan said he knows something's wrong. He doesn't know all of it yet. Carter let out a sound that was half laugh, half groan. 7 years. 7 years of holidays and birthdays and family dinners, and she's been sitting there thinking about me while my brother holds her hand. He looked physically ill. That's disgusting. That's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. We couldn't console him no matter how hard we tried. We just had to let him process it all on his own. We left Carter's apartment with the picture almost complete. In the car, Ethan was quiet for a minute. Then he said, So Savannah's been in love with Carter for years. She married Mason to stay close to him. Carter never felt the same way. Her whole marriage is a lie. And she's miserable, I added. Mason said she's been distant for years. Checked out. She's trapped in a life she never wanted, waiting for a man who's never going to want her back. Ethan nodded slowly. Then he looked at me. But you're not. I frowned. What? You're not trapped. You're not miserable. You didn't marry me for access to someone else. His voice was careful, like he was working something out. You married me because you love me and we're actually happy. She can't stand it, I said slowly. She's been living a lie for 7 years, watching Carter not want her. Stuck in a marriage that means nothing. And then she looks at me and you and sees everything she doesn't have. Ethan finished. Real love, a real marriage. Happiness she'll never get. Because the man she wants doesn't even see her. We sat with that for a moment. I could feel the shape of it now. The why. It was right there, just out of reach. I think I understand, I said quietly. But I need to hear her say it. Ethan looked at me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to have a conversation with my sister. I pulled out my phone and texted Mason. Is Savannah home yet? The response came back in seconds. Yeah, just got back. Why? I typed back. We know why she lied. We're coming over. Ethan glanced at me as he started the car. You sure you want to do this tonight? I've never been more sure of anything. The drive to Mason's house felt shorter than before. Maybe because I knew exactly what I was walking into this time. No more confusion, no more questions, just answers I was going to drag out of my sister whether she wanted to give them or not. Mason opened the door before we even knocked. His face was tight, jaw clenched. He'd been waiting. She's in the living room, he said quietly. She doesn't know you're coming. Good. I walked past him into the house. Savannah was on the couch, shoes off, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world, like she hadn't just blown up my entire life a few hours ago. She looked up when I walked in, and her face shifted. Surprise first, then something that looked almost like amusement. Lauren couldn't stay away. She set her phone down and crossed her arms. Let me guess, you came to tell me I'm wrong, to explain yourself, to beg me to take it back. She shook her head with this little smile. It won't work. Mom and Dad know the truth now. Everyone knows. You're right, I said. Everyone's about to know the truth. Something flickered across her face. Ethan came in behind me and stood by the door. Mason moved into the room and positioned himself where he could see both of us. Savannah looked between us and her smile faltered. What's this? This is me telling you what I know. I kept my voice calm, steady. You knew Carter first. You worked at the same company. You grabbed lunch together, talked in the break room. You had feelings for him. Savannah's face changed. The amusement drained out of it. What exactly are you talking about? Carter introduced you to Mason, his brother, and you married Mason anyway. I watched her carefully. You married him to stay close to Carter. That's insane, Savannah said, but her voice had gone thin. That's absolutely insane. I married Mason because I love him. You've been distant for years, Mason said from across the room. His voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. You cancel every date night. You're never present. But when Carter needs something, you're out the door before I finish my sentence. Savannah whipped around to face him. Mason, you can't possibly believe. I asked you once if you were happy, Mason continued. You said yes, but it never reached your eyes. I thought I was the problem. I thought I wasn't enough. Turns out I was never even the point. That's not true. Savannah stood up. I adore you, I married you. I've been with you for 7 years. 7 years of sitting next to Carter at every dinner, I said. 7 years of remembering his birthday, his hobbies, his schedule. 7 years of driving 3 hours to his housewarming party while Mason had a work deadline. 7 years of waiting for him to notice you. Savannah's eyes were wild now, darting between me and Mason and Ethan, looking for an exit that wasn't there. This is ridiculous. You're twisting everything. I was just being a good sister-in-law. Say it, Savannah. My voice was hard. Tell Mason why you really married him. Tell him what you've been waiting for. I haven't been waiting for anything. Her voice pitched higher. This is ridiculous. You're all insane. I'm a good wife. I've been a good wife for 7 years. Then why does Carter have 300+ texts from you? Ethan asked. Random articles. Checking in. Remembering every detail of his life. Because I'm friendly. Because I'm a good sister-in-law. Is that a crime now? You helped him move, I said. You bought him gifts. You drove 3 hours to his housewarming. So what? Savannah was pacing now, her hands shaking. So what if I'm nice to him? So what if I show up for family? That doesn't mean anything. You hug him too long, Mason said quietly. You always sit next to him. You light up when he walks in the room. I've seen it for years. I just didn't want to believe it. Mason, stop. Savannah spun toward him, her eyes wild. You're letting them poison you against me. They're lying. Lauren's always been jealous of me. She's always wanted to tear me down. Jealous of what? I stepped closer to her. Your hollow marriage? Your checked-out husband? The man you've been waiting 7 years for who doesn't even know you exist. Shut up. Savannah's face was red now, tears streaming. You don't know anything. You don't know what it's like. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. I was in her face now. Explain why you married Mason. Explain why you've been obsessing over Carter. Explain why you tried to destroy my life today. I wasn't trying to destroy your life. You told my husband I married him for money. You told my parents. You stood in their kitchen crying fake tears, and you lied. It wasn't supposed to go like this. Savannah was backing up, her hands pulling at her hair. None of this was supposed to happen. I just wanted. What? Mason's voice boomed through the room. What did you want, Savannah? What have you been wanting for 7 years while I've been killing myself trying to make you happy? Savannah was cornered against the wall now, her chest heaving, her eyes darting between all of us like a trapped animal. You don't understand. None of you understand. I tried to love you, Mason. I really tried, but I couldn't. I couldn't stop thinking about who, Mason demanded. I didn't mean for it to be like this. She was sobbing now, mascara running down her face, snot dripping from her nose. I thought it would go away. I thought if I just stayed close enough, if I was patient enough, he would finally see me. Who? Savannah. I grabbed her shoulders. Say his name. Say it. I can't. Say it. Because I love him. The words exploded out of her like she'd been holding them in for years. Because she had. I love Carter. I've always loved Carter. From the first day I met him, I knew he was the one. And then he introduced me to Mason, and I thought I thought if I was close enough, if I was part of his family, he would realize we were meant to be together. The room fell completely quiet. Savannah's chest was heaving. Her face was red, and tears were streaming down her cheeks, and she looked like someone who had just watched her whole life collapse. Because she had. Mason made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. Savannah spun toward him, reaching out. Mason, I didn't mean. It's not what you think. You just said you love my brother. Mason's voice was barely a whisper. You've been married to me for 7 years, and you just said you love my brother. I love you too. I love both of you. It's complicated. It's not complicated. Mason stepped back from her. You married me to get close to him. That's what they're saying. And you just confirmed it. Savannah was sobbing now. I thought if I was around him enough, if I was part of his family, he would see me. He would realize we were meant to be together. I just needed more time. 7 years. Mason's voice cracked. You needed 7 years of my life, of our marriage, of me thinking something was wrong with me. He turned away from her like he couldn't stand to look at her anymore. I should have felt satisfied. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was sick. And I still needed one more answer. Why me, Savannah? She looked at me through her tears, mascara running down her face just like it had at our parents' house. But this time it was real. Why go after my marriage? What did I ever do to you? Savannah laughed. It was an ugly sound. Broken. You didn't do anything, Lauren. That's the problem. You didn't do anything, and you got everything. What exactly are you talking about? You married for love. She spat the word like it was poison. You found someone who actually wants you, who chose you, who looks at you like you're the only person in the room. She gestured at Ethan. He's never going to look at someone else and wish he was with them. He's never going to spend 7 years waiting for someone better to notice him. He actually loves you. Her voice broke. And I have to watch it. Every holiday, every family dinner, I have to watch you be happy while I'm stuck in this prison I built for myself. Waiting for a man who doesn't even know I exist. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Do you know what that's like? To realize you wasted your entire life on someone who will never want you, and then look across the table at your sister who has everything you'll never have. So you tried to destroy it, I said quietly. You told Ethan I married him for money. You told our parents. You tried to make my marriage look fake. Because if your marriage was fake, then I wasn't alone. Savannah screamed. If you were just like me, if you married for money like I married for access, then I wasn't the only pathetic one. I wasn't the only one who wasted my life. We would be the same. 2 sisters who made terrible choices, and I wouldn't have to feel so. She couldn't finish. She just stood there crying, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. I understood now. All of it. Savannah didn't hate me. She wasn't trying to hurt me specifically. She just couldn't survive being the only sister with a fake marriage. If she could drag me down to her level, she wouldn't have to face what she'd done alone. But my marriage isn't fake. I said, I love Ethan. He loves me. We're happy. And nothing you say to our parents or anyone else is going to change that. Savannah looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. She had nothing left to say. Mason walked to the front door and opened it. Get out. Savannah turned to him. Mason, please. Get out of my house. I'll have your stuff sent to wherever you end up, but I want you gone tonight. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Mason's voice was flat. Dead. Go to your parents. You could go to a hotel. Go to Carter for all I care, but you're not staying here. Not after this. Savannah looked at me one last time. I don't know what she was hoping to see. Sympathy maybe. Some sisterly bond that would make me intervene. But I just looked back at her. She made her choice. Now she had to live with it. She grabbed her purse and walked out the door without another word. Mason stood in the doorway watching her go. Then he closed the door and leaned his forehead against it. 7 years, he said quietly. I gave her 7 years. I'm sorry, Mason. I meant it. He was collateral damage in all of this. A good man who did nothing wrong except fall in love with the wrong woman. He turned around and looked at me and Ethan. Thank you for telling me. I needed to know. We left Mason standing in his living room, looking at the empty space where his marriage used to be. In the car, Ethan took my hand. You okay? I thought about it. My parents had disowned me. My sister had tried to destroy my life. I'd spent the whole day uncovering a web of lies that went back 7 years. But I was sitting next to a man who never doubted me, who stood beside me through all of it, who loved me, actually loved me, and wasn't going anywhere. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. Ethan squeezed my hand. She tried to make what we have into something ugly. She failed. She did. Savannah wanted company in her misery. Instead, she ended up completely alone.